Yep.
Hello, everybody. My name's Howard Storm, and I'm with Corey Odo, and I'm discussing this book, My Descent into Death, which is the story of my near-death experience, published in the year 2000, available on Amazon. And we've been going over it chapter by chapter, just talking about the chapters, not reading them. There's more stuff in the chapters, and I'm talking about things that aren't in the chapters, but are relevant to those particular periods of time. Anyways, this chapter we'll be talking about today is Clarence and Lisa. Those are the real first names of two people I met in the hospital when I was recovering. And I learned a lot from them. And that's what I want to share with you, what I learned from these two people. And I just want to say that they aren't necessarily most likely teachers you'd ever expect to find. And that's part of the point that I want to make, is that you find valuable lessons about life from some pretty unlikely sources sometimes. It seems like everybody's looking for, somebody to learn from. I do all the time. I'm constantly doing searches on the internet, trying to learn new things. I watch a lot of documentaries on TV. I learn a lot of stuff from a lot of intelligent people. And even at my late stage in life, my hunger for learning is actually increasing. I just want to know more and more and more all the time. I don't know why. I just like crazy to learn stuff. This morning, I was just learning about chimpanzees in Africa, orphan baby chimps and people that are caring for them. It's like really wonderful. Anyways, I don't, the whole time I was reading, it's like, oh, I wish I'd go to Africa and meet these people and visit them as they nurture these chimps back to life. Anyways, so the background of the story is I'm in the hospital in the United States. It used to be called St. Luke's Hospital. Now it's by a different name, and real close to my house. It's just a couple miles away. I went there from the French hospital. I was on the critical list for many weeks at this hospital, St. Luke's. And I was in really bad shape. They were telling my wife every day they didn't know whether I was going to be there in the morning or not. And I couldn't eat anything. So for a month and a half or 2 months, nothing passed my lips. I don't mean, when I say nothing, I mean no ice chips, no water, no food, no liquids, no nothing. I couldn't handle anything going down my throat. It made me violently nauseous. Even thinking about it made me nauseous. So let me start with Lisa, because she gave me so much. She's contributed enormously to my recovery, but more importantly, what she gave me was something that I hope I'll never forget, and that I'll practice every day of my life with everyone I meet. Lisa was right out of an associate's degree program at Northern Kentucky University in nursing. She had her RN and she had her associate's degree. She did not have a BS in nursing. That's a 4-year degree. She told me one time that she hoped someday, when she had the money and the time, she'd go back and get her bachelor's science degree in nursing. But anyways, so I don't know exactly how old she was. I would guess she was like 21. If she was older than that, she didn't look it. She really looked, she looked like a child. Relatively Speaking. Nice looking young lady, blonde, slim, no great beauty, but a nice looking young lady. Kentucky girl. You tell by her accent, she's definitely Kentucky. And in no obvious way, a remarkable person. Now, because she was brand new to the hospital, this was her first job working at St. Luke's Hospital. They had given her the graveyard shift, which was 11 to 7. And she was the only nurse on duty on that whole floor. During the day, they'd have like 2 or 3 or 4 nurses, but at night they had 1 nurse because theoretically everybody's sleeping, which doesn't happen. I mean, that's not happening at all. But anyways, so she was really busy. I just want to tell you, I really liked her because she was patient and kind to me, and she listened to me. And that's the whole point that I'm trying to get here, is that she listened. And that's like the most important thing we can do in our relationships with other people, is listen to them, not judge them, not argue with them, not, just listen to them. She listened to me. But anyways, so I was not ambulatory. I had lots of IVs in my arms, and I was very weak and in constant pain, etc. And because I wasn't taking any liquids, I did not have a catheter at this time because I wasn't urinating. I wasn't defecating or urinating. I was, I was dry as a bone. And one night, I don't know why, it was about 3 o'clock in the morning, I woke up and I had soaked the bed with urine. I was getting intravenous IVs. So, I mean, there was fluid in my body, fluid was being put in my body through the IVs. So I had a buzzer, on a cable to flash a red light saying I needed help. So I'm hitting the buzzer. Nothing happens. I'm hitting the buzzer, the light, nothing happens. So now I'm getting aggravated. It's like really embarrassing that I wet my bed. I hadn't done that since I was a, little child. And I'm hitting that buzzer and I'm hitting that buzzer. I don't know how much time went on. I was so aggravated, it felt like hours. I'm sure it was just a matter of, minutes or something. So finally, all of a sudden, after a bit, Lisa comes into the room and she's out of breath. And I said to her angrily, I've been hitting this buzzard for a half an hour. Where you been? I wet the bed. I need you to change the bed. And she said, "Oh, Mr. Storm, I'm so sorry. We had a code blue down the hall. And I know your light and buzzer was going off, but I couldn't get here because I was with the doctors because we were trying to bring this guy back." And like, boom. All of a sudden, I am like hit with a wave of guilt. Like I'm a selfish jerk because like I'm concerned because I got a wet bed. Meanwhile, they're trying to save someone's life down the hall. Didn't quite have time to attend to my huge problem. And she said, "I'll change your bed for you." Now, changing my bed, I couldn't get out of bed. Changing my bed meant she had to change my bed with me in it. So she rolled me over to one side of the bed, took up the soiled linens, crumpled them up, then rolled me across that pile over to the mattress, took off the soiled linens, laid down clean linens and made that side of the bed, then rolled me over to the side that she'd made, finished up the other side and then tucked me in all nice and tight with my clean sheets and blankets and stuff like that, and apologized copiously the whole time for disturbing me and taking so long to get to me. Meanwhile, I'm feeling so guilty because, like, I mean, what I was all upset about and angry about and complaining about was nothing compared to what she was doing. Um, I said earlier, like, when we meet people, like, it's natural for us to judge them. He looks like a mean SOB. I don't like that guy. She looks like a slut. I don't want to have anything to do with her. Or she looks, or just the opposite. We look at someone who's like really well dressed. Boy, he looks rich and successful. I'd like to get to know him. He's like, oh, he must be somebody important. Or boy, she's good looking. Boy, look the way she's dressed. She's a real smart dresser. That is one hot babe. I'd like to get to know her. I mean, we judge by appearances. The Bible says humans judge by appearances. God judges by the heart. And I try to remember that all the time. Don't judge people by their appearances. Please don't judge me by my appearance. I like to wear blue jeans and old shirts. I'm wearing this shirt is older than Corey. Seriously. And I like this shirt. And I don't really care much whether you like it or not. It's like, people tell me I dress like a street person. Well, when I go to church, I put on nice clothes. But generally, I just wear what I'm comfortable in, what I like, and I'm not really too worried about what people think of it. Don't judge me by my appearance. Don't judge anybody by their appearance. I've done prison ministry, and like I was terrified of those guys. They all looked very, very threatening. When you're in a prison for a long time, you have to take on a very threatening countenance because there's just way too many crazy attackers in there, and like you just got to be on the defensive. Like, oh, that's what the prisoners told me. You just got to be ready for an attack out of the clear blue sky. I mean, so you can be just stand in line, someone stick a shiv in you for no reason. Someone try and pick a fight with you for no reason. I found during prison ministry, those guys were really good people, but they had a lot of defenses up when I first got to meet them, and they were scary people. I was afraid of them until I got to know them. So I talked about this in the last episode. So I wasn't eating, I wasn't drinking, I wasn't taking anything in, and I was in really bad shape. And I talked to Dr. Linney, Jim Linney came in and changed all my antibiotics and stuff. And really, I started to turn the corner. I tell you, Lisa worked night shift. Because I was so sick and out of it and all that stuff, I never knew whether it was day or night. I mean, sometimes I had a window in my room and I look at the window and go, oh, it's light, must be daytime. Or I look at the window and it's like, oh, it's dark, it must be nighttime. But I didn't have a clock. I didn't know. I mean, I'd sleep for a couple hours, then be awake for a few hours and sleep for a couple hours. So that was my life for months. And anyways, so Lisa would come in when she had time and she'd talk to me and she'd listen to me. Nobody in that hospital would listen to me because I want to tell them about Jesus and I want to tell them about heaven and hell and I want to tell them what I experienced. And nobody wanted to hear it. Nobody, not my family, not doctors, not nurses, nobody. But Lisa would listen to me and she didn't. You know what she did? She didn't comment on it. She could go like, "Oh, that's incredible," or "That's great," or "I really believe you," or "That didn't happen." You must be crazy. You need a psychiatrist. She never said any of those things, which I heard plenty from other people. She just listened to me and let me know that she understood what I was saying. She was sympathetic without necessarily agreeing or disagreeing one way or the other. She was a great listener when she had time. Sometimes she was really busy and I didn't see much of her. Other times she'd spend real time with me. And it was like there was somebody in the hospital that cared about me and took me seriously. Lisa, one person in the whole world. And that made a huge difference to me. And I told you last time, I'll just summarize it real quickly. She came in one time and told me she was going to make me a milkshake. I wasn't eating it. I told her not to make me a milkshake. The idea made me sick. She said, I'm going down to cancer and I'm going to make you a protein milkshake. And she brought it in. And she stood there. We had a straw and she stood there and she said, you're going to drink the whole thing now. Start drinking. And I started sipping it and it tasted wonderful. Oh, I neglected to tell you the most important thing. Because I always talk to her about the importance of love. Love is like the most important thing in the world. She said to me, quote, Lisa, I made this with love. That destroyed any objection that I had to drinking the milkshake. How could, I told her love was the most important thing in the world. And now she comes in with this milkshake and says she made the milkshake with love. How could I refuse it? So I started sipping on it, little tiny sips at a time. She said, she said this several times, I'm standing here until you drink the whole thing. And she did. I don't know how long it took me. It took me a long time to drink. It was a big milkshake. And she stood there the whole time while I sipped it down. And if I started slowing down, she'd go, have another sip. Just like with a baby, have another sip, have another sip, And I'd look at her and, okay, take another sip. And I finished off the milkshake. From that day on, I got my appetite back and I started eating. If you don't eat, you're going to die. It's like, duh, we all know that. I've heard different estimates. You got about 4 or 6 weeks without food and you die. Well, I was way past that. And I was not doing well. And Lisa, this freshly minted RN with an associate's degree, she was going to make me eat. And she knew the right thing to say. And she said, only person that's ever said something like that to me, I made this out of love, or I did this out of love, or I'm doing this for my love of you, or whatever. Nobody's ever said that to me except Lisa that one time. She knew how to get through to me because she'd built a relationship with me. I trusted her and she knew what was best for me. I'm sure if she'd gone to a doctor and said, oh, Mr. Storm down in room 326, he hasn't been eating. I'm going to go make him a huge milkshake with protein and raw egg and stuff and make him drink it. The doctor would have said, like, no. The doctor would have said, what, are you out of your mind? No, you can't do that. Don't do that. She didn't ask anybody. She just did it. I think it was a total God thing that she knew that was what she needed to do and that she was going to get it down me, and she did. And it really helped me turn a whole corner. It wasn't but a few weeks when I was released from the hospital. Not better, but enough to go home. So that's my story. But I don't know what happened to Lisa. I went back to the hospital a year or two later and went up to the floor and asked the nurse on duty, do you remember a night nurse by the name of Lisa, right out of the nursing program at Northern Kentucky University? And she said, yeah, I remember. And I said, is she still here? She said, oh, no, she's moved to another hospital. I said, do you know where she's gone? And they said, no, we don't know where she is. So I didn't even know her last name. I never saw her again. I'll see her in heaven, get to thank her some more. Now I want to talk about Clarence, because this one is kind of a pretty far-fetched story, but I'm telling you the flat out truth. Across the hall from me, there was a screamer. So it's like, I said, like I'd sleep for a couple hours and I'd be awake for a couple hours, sleep for a couple hours. Like, it was like exhausted all the time. I just wanted to sleep all the time. And sometimes I could, and a lot of times I couldn't. Clarence screamed like an animal. I want to imitate it. You all know what screaming is. And I mean, as loud as he could. And he had no language. All he did was scream these animal-like screams. And it would just come on full blast. It just starts screaming like a madman. Sooner or later, the nurses would go in and try and calm him down. And I would hear the nurses talk to him. And he was also a biter and a hitter. And so I realized from what the nurses were saying to him, he was strapped in. He was an old man. And he had bit several nurses when they had tried to help him. He never uttered an intelligible word. He just screamed. I came to hate him for a couple of reasons. One is he would start screaming in the middle of the night and wake me up, and he'd go on until the nurses came and calmed him down. And then it took me a while to get back to sleep, so he was very annoying that way. The other thing, the way the nurses were clearly very afraid of him. And they kept him tightly strapped down. So anyways, I started asking the nurses, so what's the deal with Clarence? I learned his name because I could hear the nurses calling him by name, and they said, he has Alzheimer's. It's very advanced. And I said, so who goes into his room during the day? Because I could hear a woman talking to him during the daytime. He said, that's his wife. She comes every day and spends hours with him. And I said, well, she seems nice. And they said, she's incredibly nice. But Clarence, most of the time, doesn't know who she is. Sometimes he does. By the way, I just want to add a little aside. My dad had Alzheimer's. So I'm unfortunately very familiar with how that affects people. It's a terrible way to go. Anyhow. So this goes on for weeks. And I'm praying to God. Why do you let Clarence, why'd you give him that disease? Why'd you allow him to have that disease? Why is he alive? Why do you keep him alive? You know, why does he mistreat the nurses? Why is he so often mean to his wife when she's apparently like so kind and loving and caring for him? Why? I'm asking all these questions. And that's what I'm praying. And God said to me in my prayers, listen to Clarence. I'm like, okay, whatever. You know, all he does is scream. I've never seen him. I've never met him. He's across the hall in another room. And so one night I'm listening to Clarence screaming. And this is what I heard. And I believe it's really, truly what Clarence was saying to anybody that might be listening. And what he was saying was, I'm buried in this body that doesn't work. My mind doesn't work. My body doesn't work. And nobody knows that I'm still here, that I'm still me, but I'm buried way down deep in this prison that I can't get out of. Help me, help me, help me. And I started crying. So I said to Clarence, Clarence, I'm across the hall and I can hear you. and I can't help you, but I just want you to know that I know that you're Clarence, and that you're real, and that you're still alive, and that you're still here, locked inside that body that has betrayed you in every way. And he quieted right down. So when he would, later on, in subsequent days, when he would start screaming, I would talk to him. I mean, I'm not audibly across the hall or anything. I mean, just I would sit there quietly talk to Clarence, and he would stop screaming. And all I did was try to acknowledge that I know you're there. I know you're suffering terribly. I know you want to get out of that prison and you can't. And I would tell him about his wife and that the nurses are trying to help you, be good to them. Don't hurt the nurses. Look at your wife. Let her know that you know she's there and stuff like that. This may sound crazy. I'm telling you, it was real. I mean, it really was real that I connect with them. I'll tell you one more Alzheimer's story. I had this isn't in the book. I had a lovely couple at my church in Cincinnati, and they were in the choir. They were probably in their late 40s, early 50s. They're just the nicest people you ever wanted to meet. They're just sweet and adorable, or just ordinary people, middle-class people. And she got what's called early onset Alzheimer's, which is really, really a cruel thing. And it progresses very rapidly. So anyways, family couldn't handle her needs anymore. So they put her in a center in Cincinnati for Alzheimer's patients. This whole place is just Alzheimer's people. So I would go and visit her there. And she deteriorated very quickly. Within weeks and months, she was just disappearing mentally. And last time I saw her before she died, I went to visit her and I got zero response from her. She's sitting in a chair in her room and she didn't acknowledge me coming into the room. I tried to talk to her. She just was looking at the floor. I mean, nothing, absolutely nothing from her at all. No response. And we've been good friends, and I prayed, nothing happened. And I'm saying, God, how can I connect with her? And the message I got from God was, she loved music. Sing to her. So I like to sing, but I don't consider myself, much of a singer. I mean, I like to sing for my own enjoyment, but no big thing. So anyways, okay, I'll try it. So the only thing I could think of at the time were hymns. So I started singing hymns like, Softly and Tenderly, Jesus Calling, and Amazing Grace, and, just anything that came to mind, I'd sing what I could remember of them. She looked up and she couldn't, but she was trying to sing along with me. We totally connected. And so that encouraged me to sing more and more. So and then I couldn't remember anymore. So I'd just go back and repeat the stuff that I'd sung, and I'd sing some more, and I'd sing some more. And she was like smiling and moving her lips. Not much coming out, but moving her lips, trying to sing along. And I was filled with joy and felt like I'd had a really successful visit with her. And it wasn't shortly too long after that I found out she died. And I was like, boy, am I glad I had that good visit with her before she died. Anyways, so the point that I'm trying to make here is that we need to be empathetic. I said earlier that it's about listening. Well, empathy means listening carefully to another person and acknowledging what they're telling you without judgment. I mean, like when you visit someone in the hospital and you do empathetic listening, they tell you about all their miseries and pains, and what you do is you acknowledge it. You say, boy, I understand, that leg really hurts. I know that the doctors and nurses are trying to, help you deal with that pain, but sometimes it just isn't very effective, the stuff that they're giving you. But, I hope that you'll keep telling them what's wrong so that they can keep trying to help you deal with it, because I know it's really, really hard for you to lie here all day long with that kind of pain. And you're like, I mean, that's empathetic. Empathetic listening is hearing what a person is saying and acknowledging that you heard what they said. It's not sympathy. Okay, there's sympathy and empathy are two different words, and they mean two different things. Empathy means you acknowledge their feelings, their thoughts. You listen to them, listen carefully, and then acknowledge what you heard them say. And if they correct you, if you didn't hear them right, acknowledge that you heard the correction and, say, oh, well, I misunderstood, what we're really talking about is da da da. In ministry, which I did for 30 years, I pastored for 30 years. I spent most of my time listening to people. Now, some people get the wrong impression because, like, I'm doing these YouTube things with Corey. Maybe you think all I do is talk. I don't listen. Well, that's not how a pastor operates. You spend most of your time listening and empathetically and acknowledging to people what you heard. We, although on Sunday we'll do a sermon or a homily, which is, 10 minutes or 40 minutes or whatever. That's just part of the worship service. During the week, we listen, and we're not preaching at people. There are many times that I've thought privately to myself, I went to seminary to learn all this theology, and nobody ever is interested in all that stuff that I know. All that stuff that I learned in seminary. Nobody wants to hear about that stuff. What they want to do is they want to talk about their life. And I listen. And I typically, at the end of the conversation, say a prayer for them. And that's my job. I don't fix anybody. I don't change anybody. I can't cure anybody. I'm just a listener, and hopefully people understand that I care and that God cares, because that's what I know. This sounds kind of vainglorious, but what a minister is, he's an ambassador for Christ. I'm standing in for Jesus, trying to the best of my ability, be his representative on earth. It's pretty overwhelming responsibility when you think about it, trying to represent Christ, but that's what you're supposed to be doing as a pastor. The word minister means to serve. And the person, I'm serving the people and I'm serving Jesus, and I'm the intermediary, trying to connect people to Jesus, to God, as the pastor, to the best of my ability, representing God as some listening and caring and patient and kind and loving, So that's our job. So anyways, that's what I want to get across in this chapter. That's what I want to get across in this video, is the importance of listening to people, not judging them, and acknowledging them wherever they're at in their journey. I've dealt with lots of happy people. I've dealt with lots of sad people. I've dealt with people that are suicidal. I've dealt with people that are clearly certifiably nuts. I'm not a psychologist, but I mean, they're like, I mean, they just say a lot of crazy stuff, and I'm like, oh yeah, I don't know what to do with all this stuff because it's like doesn't make any sense. It's just like they're just rambling all this stuff at me, but I try and be patient and kind and listen to them, and if I can make any sense out of what they're saying, I acknowledge it. If we listen to people, I believe it's healing for both of us, but particularly for the person that people want to be heard. You know what? You know what I've discovered? Everybody wants to tell their story. And I mean, it might be a big story or a little story. It might be about what happened that morning with their kids, or what happened that night with their spouse, or it might be changing jobs, or it might be getting involved in politics, or what we're going to do about big, huge world situations. But everybody wants to tell their story about what they're concerned about, what they're thinking about, and people like to be heard. You don't have to offer them a solution. That's up to them. You know what? When you give people unsolicited advice, they typically don't want it, and they resent it. The other day, I was with a group of friends, and someone started giving me advice about what to do, and I got frustrated, and I was kind of rude to that person. Let them know I didn't appreciate the advice I wasn't asking for. We think that we can fix people. You can't fix anybody. You can help people if they want your help. Most people don't really want your help. If they do ask for your help, if you know someone that can help them, one of the things that I did as a pastor was refer people to agencies that could help them. I kept a list in my desk of agencies with their phone numbers, and I said, you really need to call this group because they can really help you. Because I wasn't trained to help these people in all these situations, or I didn't have the resources to help them. But I could always find an agency that could and would if they really wanted help. I didn't make them go to the agency. I just gave them the name of the agency and the phone number and told them that this place would help. So, helping people if they're looking for help, and if you know a resource or a way for them to get help, good. But you don't have to give people advice, and don't think that you can fix them or change them because you can't. 30 years it took me to figure that out. You can't fix people, but you can listen to them, and you can care about them, and you can pray for them. And that's love. So that's the big lesson for today from Lisa and Clarence. And I thank God for me getting to know those two people. Two unexpected, great teachers.
Awesome. Seems like Lisa and Clarence had a big impact on your life, eh?
Yeah.
Cool. I had a nurse like that myself when I was in the hospital. She was actually my first cousin, but she was the story of Lisa reminded me of her quite a bit. Like, I was hit by a car when I was 10, and I was pretty crippled up for a few months, but she was pretty much, with the story you gave me, it was pretty much the same idea. I was still able to eat and stuff, but she was always there every day looking after me, doing extra, probably because I was her first cousin. But outside of that, she was a good nurse too. So I can relate to that story. And it's pretty cool. But yeah, it's good advice you give. A lot of the stuff you say, as far as like unsolicited advice, I find I'm kind of bad for doing that to people, but I've been humbled a few times by several people. So I backed off a bit. But anyways, the next chapter you got is Sent Back. That sounds like it's going to be a good one. So I really appreciate you doing these videos. I don't really have anything to say. I mean, there's lots of questions, but I'm assuming you probably want to do another Q&A at some point, just because you know it's going to take at least an hour to do something like that.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
let's wait to do the next chapter and then we'll do a Q&A after that.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I'll send you a message when I'm free, and whenever you're free, we can do it again.
Great. Thanks,
All right.
Corey.
I appreciate you doing it, Howard.
Yeah, don't fall on the ice anymore. You know spring chicken, you can't take too many of those.
Oh man, I'm telling you, my body's telling me that lately. So I'll try to be careful.
Okay.
All right. Have a good day.
Okay. God bless.
God bless
Bye-bye.
you. Bye-bye.